So right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the best teams in the NFL, one of the only remaining undefeated teams sitting at 3-0 in the NFL after the first 3 weeks of the season. And I think looking at this team coming into 2024, it still seemed that they would have one of the best defenses in the NFL, which they have through the first 3 weeks of the season. They have been dominant. That's putting it lightly. They have been destroying teams when it comes to their defensive play. And I think when you look at the team from last season, the fact that they were sitting at 10-7 with just really bad quarterback play with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, when you look at the total passing stats last year, a total of 13 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. I thought that Russell Wilson coming in to start, which I assumed he would be the starter, it seemed that he would have been if not for that injury, which allowed Justin Fields the opportunity to come in and win the job. I thought that bringing Russell Wilson in would improve the Steelers' offense, and the fact that they had won 10 games last season, having Russell there, I think this could be 11, 12-win team with Russell Wilson just because of how bad the offense was last year. And I think so far we're seeing that even with an offense that right now is actually scoring less points per game than last season, currently the Steelers are averaging 17 points per game versus last year the Steelers averaged 17.9 points per game. They are still sitting at 3-0, and that's because of how dominant this defense has been. They're the best scoring defense in the NFL, the best total defense in the NFL, the third best rushing defense, sixth best passing defense, and they're sixth best in pressure percentage according to NFL Pro. So it's been the defense that has held this team up and really allowed them to start off 3-0. But now I want to talk about Justin Fields, because there obviously was a debate in Chicago at the end of last season and into the offseason whether or not the Bears should move off of Justin Fields and move on to Caleb Williams. Personally, I thought that moving off of Justin Fields was the right decision, because Justin Fields, as a passer, in his 3 years in Chicago, he was not very good, was consistently one of the worst passing quarterbacks in the league when you look at a majority of his stats. And so far, through his first 3 games as a Pittsburgh Steeler, he has played much better than he ever played in Chicago. He has a 73.3% completion percentage, which is about 12% higher than he ever had in Chicago. He has 2 touchdowns to 1 interception, a 95.3 passer rating. If you look at his 3 years in Chicago, his passer rating, his first year, 73.2, his next year, 85.2, 2023, 86.3. So the 95.3 passer rating is his best by a wide margin in his first 3 games as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I'm honestly pretty surprised as to how good he looks. 12th best passer rating in the NFL, 6th best completion percentage, 3rd in completion percentage over expected, 11th in expected points added per dropback. And so he has been playing as a top 6 to 12 quarterback, depending on which stats you look at. And I would imagine as a Bears fan, that has to be a little bit concerning when you see Justin Fields leave Chicago and immediately he already looks like a better player. It's nice for me. I'm a Packers fan, as you can probably tell with some of the stuff I have behind me here. So I enjoy seeing a little bit of I enjoy seeing problems go down in Chicago, and as you know, a Packers fan, you want to see the Bears consistently struggle. And so it's just interesting that Justin Fields is already getting better in his first few games as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I do think this begs the question when you look at these young quarterbacks in the NFL. I do think sometimes teams move off of their young quarterbacks too early. In Justin Fields' case, I was fully on board with the Bears moving off of Fields, considering he had 3 years in Chicago, wasn't able to find success, and maybe it's just coming to this Arthur Smith offense where they are mainly focused on running the ball, at least so far in these games where they've been up a lot just because the defense is playing so well. They're able to do that. He seems to be playing better here. But my question with this Steelers offense, which let me just read off their stats right now where they rank. It's not very good. 24th ranked scoring offense, 24th in yards per game, 28th in yards per play. They are very good at converting third downs, 6th best in the NFL, 16th in EPA per play, 7th in EPA per pass. So they've been pretty efficient as a passing offense, 28th in EPA per rush, and 28th in rush yards per play. And so my only question with this kind of team, a team that's formulated around a top-tier defense that dominates, and then you have an offense that is not putting up a lot of points. On the one hand, they're doing a good job of not turning the ball over, and when you have your defense, barely allowing more than, I think they're averaging about 8.6 points per game, which is insane for an NFL defense. If you're not turning the ball over, you only need to score what so far the Bears could have won, averaging 9 points per game on offense, which is crazy to hear. And so far it's worked for this Steelers offense. And my only question is, when you face some better offenses, whether that's in the regular season or come playoff time, if a team puts up 20 points, 23 points, 27 points, can this Steelers offense really do enough to give their team the victory? Because I just have a hard time believing that a team that is bottom 10 in a lot of offensive categories can find success and beat some of these teams in the AFC in the playoffs. Like, can they beat the Chiefs? Can they beat the Ravens? The Ravens struggled coming out the gate, but I think they're starting to play a little bit better. I think there will be a lot of close games because that's what happens here with the Pittsburgh offense not being that good. And maybe if they needed to put up more points, they would. That's the only question I really have about the Steelers offense is when it comes to their offensive production. They've been good enough, but it hasn't really honestly been that good outside of Justin Fields playing at a top tier level and doing, whatever Arthur Smith is asking him to do. When it comes to passing the ball, he has done a very, very good job of that. And so, of course, now the question is, should they stick with Justin Fields or move off onto Russell Wilson if he comes back healthy? And I think that the decision should be to stick with Fields. I think when you have something that's working and you're sitting at 3-0 and Justin Fields is looking the best he's ever looked, I do think that you need to stick with Fields. I think if you started to struggle consistently, then maybe you think about moving to Russell Wilson. I do think that if Russell Wilson was a starting quarterback here, that the Steelers would still probably be 3-0 because I think you'd have to be a pretty bad quarterback to not help this Steelers team win based on how good the defensive performance has been. Now, if you had a Will Levis out there or Anthony Richardson who have done a really good job at throwing interceptions in the first 3 games, maybe the Steelers don't win those games. But if you have a quarterback not really throwing any interceptions, just controlling the game, the Steelers have done a good job of that, controlling the clock. I think you should win. You should have won those first 3 games based on how good this Steelers defense has been. So those are my only questions about this team going forward. Can they really find ultimate success with an offense that is 28th in yards per play? I'm not convinced, but we'll see what happens as the year goes on. And I would assume we'll see some games where this defense gives up a few more points, and we'll have to see if Justin Fields and the Steelers offense can respond, which should be interesting to see in that scenario. But if you want more NFL content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.